ready to travel back in time.
Always up for a good journey. Where are we headed today?
Back to the 1st century, but with a twist.
A twist. I do love a good twist. Lay it on me.
We're diving into the Urantia book, specifically paper 130. It recounts a year-long journey Jesus takes in his late 20s, years before his public life kicks off.
Okay, so not the Jesus we usually picture from sermons or scripture then.
Exactly. Think of this as the unknown years chapter.
So what's he up to in this chapter? Traveling the ancient world, maybe?
Bingo. He's with an Indian merchant named Gonod and Gonod's son, Ganid. It's a Mediterranean grand tour. Jerusalem, Caesarea, Alexandria. Even makes it as far as Rome.
Now that's a journey. Imagine the conversations, the cultural clashes. What a melting pot of ideas they must have encountered.
It's like peeking behind the curtain of history. And the best part, we get to eavesdrop on Jesus' conversations about life, faith, and everything in between long before his famous teachings.
I'm hooked already. So where does this behind-the-scenes tour begin?
Our first stop is Joppa, a bustling port city. Here, Jesus meets Gadiah, a Philistine.
Philistine, you say. For our listeners, those were the folks often at odds with the Israelites. Adds an interesting dynamic right off the bat.
And Gadiah, he's grappling with a story many know, Jonah and the whale. But he's struggling to square it with, well, reality.
I can relate. Whales, giant fish, men surviving inside them. It's a lot to take literally.
And that's where Jesus' teaching style shines through. He doesn't dismiss Gadiah's questions or try to correct him. Instead, he uses the story as a metaphor.
A metaphor for what?
For running from duty. See, Jesus tells Gadiah, we all have these whales of selfishness, those temptations, fears that pull us off course from our true purpose.
Wow, I can see why that image sticks with people. We all face those whales in our own lives.
Absolutely. But even in these early days, Jesus emphasizes that seeking truth, embracing what's right, that's how we overcome those internal struggles. It's not about blindly following rules, but about confronting our own whales head on.
So instead of running from the tough stuff, we lean in.
You got it. He's not handing out easy answers. He's encouraging people to think for themselves.
Inspiring stuff. Now, from the bustling port of Joppa, I'm curious, where do they set sail for next?
They head north to Caesarea, a bustling Roman city. And this stop gives us a glimpse of Jesus, the skilled carpenter, putting his practical skills to use.
Wait, hold on. They don't just whisk him from philosophical debate to philosophical debate.
Nope. This time we see him getting his hands dirty, helping repair a ship. It's a good reminder that he wasn't some distant figure. He lived a real life, experienced the everyday struggles of the people he met.
I like that. Keeps things grounded. But I bet you're going to tell me this stop also involves a meaningful conversation.
What can I say? It wouldn't be a stop on this journey without one. This time, Jesus meets a Greek worker named Anaxand, who's troubled by the injustice he sees in the world.
That's a heavy topic. How does Jesus address that, especially back then when injustice was rampant?
He does something unexpected. He doesn't tell Anaxand to start a revolution or to become some kind of political activist.
So what does he do?
He encourages him to be the salt.
The salt. Okay, now you have to explain that one.
He's saying, even in a world that often feels flavorless, even when surrounded by darkness, hold on to your goodness, your integrity. Be a source of light, no matter how small.
Powerful imagery. Instead of being consumed by the darkness, you become the light. Love it.
Me too. Now, from the shipyards of Caesarea, get ready to set sail across the Mediterranean. Our next destination, Alexandria. A city famed for its intellectual prowess and that legendary library of Alexandria.
The Library of Alexandria, now we're talking. Imagine 1 million manuscripts from across the known world, a treasure trove of knowledge just waiting to be explored.
Like the ancient world's version of an all-you-can-read buffet for the mind. And it's here, amidst the scrolls and philosophies, that Jesus and Ganid dive into a comparative study of world religions.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're not shying away from exploring different belief systems.
Not at all. And here's the thing. According to the text, Jesus doesn't dismiss these other religions. He acknowledges their strengths, their insights, finding common threads, a shared belief in a universal God across many cultures.
That speaks volumes about his character, even back then. It's not about claiming one true path, but about recognizing that shared human experience, that desire for something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. And you know, that message feels more relevant than ever today. So with that in mind, next time we'll pick up their journey, leaving the intellectual bustle of Alexandria and heading towards a more intimate setting, the island of Crete. Last time we left off with Jesus and his companions in Alexandria, soaking up knowledge in that incredible library. But their journey's far from over. This time, we're setting sail for Crete.
Ah, Crete. A place steeped in myth and legend. What kind of philosophical treasures await us on this leg of the journey?
Well, for one, we finally get a glimpse into a conversation between Jesus and God, the Father. Up until now, remember, they haven't really dived deep into religion.
Right, more about the shared experiences, the everyday moments of travel. Sounds like something shifts in Crete.
It does. It's actually sparked by Ganid, always the eager student, remember. He asks Jesus, point blank, why not start teaching publicly now? Why wait?
I can just imagine young Ganid, brimming with enthusiasm, ready to share Jesus' wisdom with the world. What's the response?
Patience. Ganid, patience. Jesus stresses the importance of timing. He compares his message to a seed. It needs the right conditions to sprout, to flourish.
A seed metaphor, classic. It speaks to that deep understanding of human nature, the need to meet people where they are. But speaking of human nature, Crete's also where we encounter a story that feels eerily relevant even today, the incident with the slave girl.
Right. It's a powerful and disturbing scene. A drunken man is harassing a young slave girl, and without hesitation, Jesus steps in.
As you do. But it's how he intervenes that's striking, right?
Exactly. No violence, no retaliation. He uses words and his presence alone to de-escalate the situation.
It's a powerful example of leading with love, even in the face of aggression. And it makes you think, how often do we meet anger with anger? What if we tried a different approach, like Jesus in that moment?
Powerful questions. It's like he's living out the principles he'll later become known for. Love, forgiveness, nonviolence. Not just concepts, but actions.
And those actions speak volumes. All right, so from the shores of Crete, where do we set sail next?
Next stop, Carthage. This city was a melting pot of cultures and beliefs, a perfect place for some serious philosophical sparring.
I'm ready for a good debate. Who does Jesus encounter in this hub of ideas?
Picture this. Jesus in deep conversation with a Mithraic priest.
Okay, now for our listeners who aren't up on their ancient religions, Mithraism, what was that about?
It was a mystery religion, popular in the Roman world, with its own rituals and beliefs about things like good versus evil, the afterlife, even a bit of astrology thrown in. And here's the thing. Jesus doesn't shy away from engaging with this priest, even though their beliefs differed.
Fascinating. So what kind of deep philosophical rabbit holes do they go down?
Well, they tackle some big ones. Immortality, time, even the nature of reality itself.
Those are some heavy topics. Any specific insights that jumped out at you from this conversation?
Well, take time, for instance. Jesus describes it not as a straight line, past, present, future, but as a stream of events, ever-changing, interconnected.
I like that. Not just minutes ticking by, but a more fluid, dynamic experience of time.
Exactly. And he suggests that as we grow spiritually, our perception of time changes. We start to see its cyclical nature, how it all connects. It's like we've been looking at time through a narrow window, and he's pulling back the curtains, revealing this expansive view.
Mind-bending stuff, right? Okay, I gotta know. What other mind-blowing ideas did they discuss?
Well, hold on to your hats, because Jesus throws out this concept of 7 dimensions of space.
Okay, you're gonna have to break that one down for me.
He's basically saying that the mind, through spiritual growth, can partially transcend these dimensions. It challenges our very understanding of reality, suggesting there's so much more than we can perceive with our senses alone.
Wow, talk about expanding your horizons. Literally, it's incredible how he could weave together these complex ideas with such clarity.
It makes you think, are we just scratching the surface of what's possible, both in terms of understanding the universe and our place within it?
Definitely something to ponder. So, with our minds thoroughly boggled, where does this incredible journey take us next?
From the intellectual heights of Carthage, we shift gears a bit, focusing on individual encounters that highlight the lasting impact of Jesus' interactions. First up, the island of Malta. Last time, we landed on Malta, a place of dramatic rescues and philosophical awakenings. Now, picture this. After all those miles, all those encounters, they finally arrive in Rome, the center of the world, at least back then.
You'd think this is where we get the grand finale, right? The climax of the journey.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The Urantia book doesn't actually tell us what Jesus did or who he met in Rome on this particular trip.
Oh, now that's interesting. Almost like they left that part of the story unwritten, intentionally.
Right. Instead of a big finish, we get this sort of open ending, an invitation to reflect on everything that came before.
I like that. It's not just about retracing Jesus' steps, but about grasping the lasting impact of those steps. Like those footprints we keep talking about. The ones he left behind with each encounter.
They don't just stop at Rome's city limits, do they? They keep going, leading outward.
Precisely. Think back on it. We followed this young Jesus from Joppa to Alexandria, Crete, Carthage, even those smaller stops along the way. He connected with merchants, philosophers, doubters, seekers, so many walks of life woven together by this shared journey.
And through it all, he nudged them to think differently, to see the world with more compassion. Planted those seeds of reflection that, who knows, maybe they bloomed long after he was gone.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's not about Jesus performing miracles or preaching to huge crowds, not in this part of his life anyway. This is about those one-on-one connections, the power of simple human interaction.
He's showing that every encounter, no matter how brief, it holds the potential to be profound.
And that's such a powerful message for us today, in a world that often feels so fragmented, so divided. We can all learn something from that approach.
It makes you think about your own life, doesn't it? The people you've crossed paths with who left a mark. The words who challenged you, inspired you, maybe even changed the way you see things.
Who are the Gedaliahs, the Anaxans, the Ezras in your own story? Who's pushed you to think deeper, to open your heart a little wider? And maybe even more important, what kind of footprints are you leaving behind as you journey through the world?
What seeds of kindness, understanding, even just a listening ear are you planting? Because that's what it's all about, right? Those small acts of connection, they ripple outward. We may never know their full impact, but that doesn't make them any less important.
Absolutely. And on that note, our deep dive into the Urantia book comes to a close. But the exploration, the quest for truth, for meaning, for connection, well, that never really ends, does it?
And hopefully our conversation today has sparked some new thoughts, some fresh perspectives, maybe even inspired you to look a little closer at the journeys we're all on, both individually and together. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep those conversations going.